Clara Dawson had always believed that a person could claw their way through hardship if they just kept going. She'd done it before, after her husband died in a river accident, after the crops failed, after the winter that froze her small homestead so solid she thought the land itself might crack open. But nothing in all her struggles compared to the moment she walked out of the general store to find her baby gone. One moment, little June had been in her basket at Clara's feet, chewing on the frayed corner of a quilt. The next, a neighbor came running, breathless, saying, "Clara, it's Dalton." Everyone knew Dalton Reed, the man who held half the town in one hand and squeezed with the other. Loans, favors, secrets, whatever a person owed, Dalton collected. Clara owed him $20, borrowed in a moment of desperation when June was sick. The interest had ballooned like a storm cloud. She raced outside. Dalton stood beside his wagon, June in his arms, the baby's tiny fists clutching the collar of his vest. "You can't, Dalton, please," Clara cried, stumbling toward him. "You defaulted," Dalton said, as if discussing the price of flour. "Payment's payment. That's a baby, not a dollar bill." Dalton shrugged, climbing onto his seat. "You should have paid your debts on time." Clara lunged, but the wagon jerked forward, leaving her coughing in a swirl of dust, screaming her baby's name into the wind as the townsfolk watched helplessly. For the next 24 hours, Clara lived inside a nightmare. She begged the sheriff, who avoided her eyes. She pleaded with townspeople, who muttered apologies and retreated behind closed doors. Even her closest friends whispered, "There's nothing anyone can do. Dalton owns everything." But Clara didn't sleep. She didn't eat. She just prayed, not fancy, elegant prayers, but raw, frantic ones spoken through cracked lips. Prayers that someone, anyone, would hear her. At noon the next day, someone did. A shadow stretched long across the dusty street as a man on a big roan horse rode in from the mountains. He wore a coat lined with wolf fur despite the heat, and his beard looked like it had been shaped more by weather than by choice. The people of Pine Hollow turned, whispering. Nobody rode in at noon. Not unless they wanted to make an entrance. Clara barely noticed the man at first. She was sitting on the wooden steps of the sheriff's office, hollow, numb. But then the horse halted directly in front of her, and the stranger dismounted with surprising gentleness. "You're Clara Dawson?" he asked, his voice deep, rough as gravel but warm beneath the grit. She nodded, confused. He took off his hat. "Name's Elias Crow." That name flickered through her memory like a struck match. She had heard stories, whispers of a mountain man who lived half-wild near Silver Range. Some said he had once been a lawman. Others said he had once been the most dangerous gun in 3 states. Nobody knew for sure, except that he was a man who kept to himself, unless someone needed help. Clara swallowed. Why are you here?" He crouched in front of her, lowering his voice. "Because I heard a baby was taken in this town. And because 20 years ago, in a place much like Pine Hollow, someone helped me when I couldn't help myself." His gaze sharpened. "Now I pay that forward." Clara's breath caught. "Dalton took my baby, said she was payment for a debt." Elias stood, jaw tightening. "Where is he?" Clara pointed toward the large house on the hill, the only one with glass windows and a wraparound porch. "Dalton's fortress." Elias didn't hesitate. He swung into his saddle and rode straight up the hill. The town followed, not knowing why. Maybe hope had stirred in them, something long dormant. Maybe they just sensed a story unfolding, one they wanted to witness. Clara followed too, her heart pounding against ribs that felt too thin to contain it. Dalton was on his porch when Elias arrived, holding June in his arms, bouncing her as if he were the child's rightful guardian. "You lost?" Dalton sneered. "This here is private." Elias cut him off. "You took something that doesn't belong to you." Dalton's smile twisted. "That woman failed to pay. I took collateral." "That's not collateral," Elias said. "That's a human life." Dalton stepped closer. "And who are you to tell me otherwise?" Elias reached into his coat, not for a gun but for a small leather pouch. He tossed it at Dalton's feet. It clinked with weight. There's double what she owed you. Take it. Dalton nudged the pouch with his boot, scoffing. This isn't about money. It's about respect. She doesn't have any. Neither do you. Elias's eyes hardened. Last chance. Dalton grinned wide. No. Last warning. You walk away. The baby stays. The street went silent. Even the wind paused. Slowly, Elias turned so the whole town could hear him. A community that lets a man steal a baby is no community at all. People shifted. Murmured. Something in them cracked open. Elias looked back at Dalton. Put the child down. Dalton didn't. Elias didn't reach for his gun. Didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward and said, quiet enough for only Dalton to hear. You don't want to find out who I was before I came to these mountains. Dalton flinched. Just a twitch. But it was enough for his henchmen to exchange uneasy glances. Enough for the sheriff's hand to slip almost unconsciously to the butt of his revolver. Enough for the townsfolk to square their shoulders, one by one. Dalton's smirk faded. Pride could puff a man up, but fear deflated him fast. He thrust the baby forward. Fine. Take her. Not worth the trouble. Clara rushed forward as Elias gently transferred June into her arms. The baby clung to her mother, sobbing softly. Clara kissed her over and over, crying into the quilt. Elias stepped back as the crowd gathered around Clara, offering embraces, apologies, promises to never let anything like this happen again. Something had shifted in Pine Hollow, something deep. Dalton retreated inside his house, door slamming like a defeated drum. Clara turned to Elias, tears shining like glass beads. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Elias said with a soft smile. By loving that child enough to fight for her. That kind of love is worth riding 100 miles for. He tipped his hat, but Clara reached out. Please stay. Even just for supper. You saved my whole world. Elias hesitated, then nodded. I reckon I could stay a while. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Pine Hollow felt different, lighter, braver, more human. One act of compassion had rippled outward, stitching together a town that had long forgotten how to stand up for one another. Clara held June close and whispered a prayer, not of desperation this time, but gratitude. Because sometimes hope doesn't arrive on wings. Sometimes it rides in on a tired horse at noon, carrying the quiet strength of a man who believes the world can still be better. And sometimes, he's right.